All right, so now Rwanda has just cut off diplomatic ties with Belgium, and they have given the Belgian diplomats 48 hours to leave their country. And maybe by the time you get to watch this, they might have less than 48 hours. On the other hand, Belgium has retaliated, and it has also considered Rwandan diplomats persona non grata and also asked them to leave their country. All this amid the DRC conflict with the M23 rebels. You might be wondering where this is coming from, but before we go any further, kindly let's watch this video where Paul Kagame made strong remarks in regards to Belgium and also their colonial activities in Rwanda.
Mvuga kandi aza kubwihanangiriza ndabisubira Ububirigi bwishe u Rwanda bukica abanyarwanda amateka aya yose arenze imyaka 30 gusa twarabihanangirije kuva kera turaza kubihanangiriza n'ubu ngubu akongera bukanya bati ntabwo tubemerera ko mugera mutya ariko tukabaza ariko mu babandi mwadushinzwe nande abanyarwanda ko mwemera Imana koko yashinze u Rwanda aba bantu mureba turaza kubibibutsa neza ko atari ko bimeze mu buryo bwacu butari bwinshi cyane turaza guhangana nabo ndavuga abo birwa batwiruka inyuma badukoronga ariko twebwe byatunanira aba batunanira ari ibintu byacu bimwe baza kugomba kwigomwa bakaduha amahoro ubwo ariko ndabivuga mbateguza ariko nteguza namwe abanyarwanda ngo iyi myaka yose tumaze kuri urugamba rwo kubaka igihugu cyacu rwo turashaka kuba abanyarwanda ntabwo dushaka kuba ababirigi.
All right, so strong remarks there, and just maybe to quote some of the things that the president said. He said Belgians destroyed Rwanda, killed Rwandans, and this history goes beyond just the past 30 years. And he also says, we want them a long time ago, we will still want them right now, and we will use all the little resources that we have to be able to fight for ourselves, right? But I want to break this down for you because I'm convinced that a lot of people in the world do not even understand the conflict between Rwanda and Belgium, right? This is what happens when we don't pay attention to our history. And this is inspired by this quote I saw on X, where someone said, Belgium will not miss a thing. I don't know why dictators get so delusional as to think that the countries the countries that were giving them aid and training their army suddenly need them so much. There is even no natural resource that Belgium was getting from Rwanda. So obviously that is someone that is supporting Belgium, and they are even asking, what will Belgium miss, right? So this person does not even understand when you say that you are ending diplomatic ties with Belgium. What exactly do you mean? You are delusional. You are the African country that needs aid from Belgium. But does this person ever pause and ask themselves, what role did Belgium play in making sure that Rwanda became a destabilized country? Because if we can't place Rwanda in the 1990 1994 genocide, then obviously we can't have this conversation with people who might not understand history. So before we get to understand why these remarks were made by President Kagame, it is very important for us to go back to Rwanda before the colonial master. And by colonial master, we mean Belgium, because in this conversation, we are going to place Belgium in so many places where we also see it playing a role in the 1994 genocide, something they have also publicly admitted, something that is known across the world, and something that they have apologized for, but is an apology while still wanting control enough. So as I said, let's go back to Rwanda before the colonial master came. So you have the famous communities here. You have the Hutus and you have the Tutsis. And before the colonial master comes in, history tells us that these people existed in a very beautiful manner. The same way so many African communities existed in the Ubuntu way. Before someone told us that you are Hutu, you are Tutsi, you are Kikuyu, you are Luo, you are Luya, all these different, boundaries and divisions that were set for us, we all existed so peacefully. So before this colonial master Belgium comes in, you are seeing, as I said, Hutus and Tutsis existing, they are existing peacefully. But then Belgium comes in and decides, you know what, the only way we are going to succeed here is when we divide these people. And as you know, divide and rule was one of the strategies that was used by so many colonial masters to be able to divide what? To divide Africans. So they say, by the way Tutsis look, these are the special people. These are just stupid dynamics that the colonial masters had, and they placed Tutsis as the special people, right? So they said, Tutsis, by the way they look, they are superior. These are from the Hamite origin. So they are actually looking at very superior beings, right? On the other end, the Hutus are the naive people. These are the indigenous people. These are people who, by the way, you look like, I don't know how you look like, but on the other end, we love the Tutsis, and the Tutsis are the people we consider superior, and these are the people who are going to enjoy the privileges. And what privileges do the Tutsis get to enjoy? They get to enjoy access to education. They get to enjoy access to power positions. So on one end, you are treating this group so nicely, and the Hutus, who also are the majority, because the Tutsis were the minority during that time, but the Hutus were the majority. So the Hutus are looking at it like, what are you guys talking about? We don't have access to education. We don't have access to any jobs. We don't have access to power positions. The Tutsis are getting all superior positions, and us, because we are inferior and we are the natives and we are the indigenous, we don't have anything to ourselves, right? So as you can see, Belgium has successfully divided these two communities. Now it's the community of the Hutus, who are also the majority, but the majority with no power. And then you have the Tutsi, who are the minority, but also the minority who get to enjoy power, right? But as this continues, remember, Africa is taking shape. The revolution has begun in different African countries. Then Belgium looks back and sees, oh my goodness, we educated these Tutsis, and there's a revolution taking place right now in Africa. So now Belgium gets scared, and also it's looking, because these colonial masters, they have to strategically position themselves in places where they are going to benefit. And now Belgium realizes, by the way, we made a mistake, because these same Tutsis that we allowed or we gave access to education are now smart. The revolution is happening across different African countries, and word is going round. So Belgium now realizes these Tutsis might actually become the anti-colonial revolutionists that we did not see coming. And obviously they get scared. So what do? They shift gears. And these people, because now Hutus are the majority, and Hutus also, just because you did not give them access to education does not mean they don't understand what is going on. Hutus are also strategizing, and they are like, you know what, we will not be ruled by the minority. We are the majority, and it's time for us to actually come out and fight for what we believe in and fight for fairness, because they did not understand why are we being ruled by the minority. Now remember, as I said, Belgium was a Tutsi ally, but the moment they discovered that this will not work for them, they shifted gear and now they become a Hutu ally. As this is taking shape, Hutus are organizing one of the most disastrous, do we say disastrous, revolution that takes place in Rwanda. And this is the Hutu revolution of 1959 that many people might not understand, because I know there are so many things that happened in Rwanda, but the point of focus is always the genocide. But in 1959, we see the Hutu revolution, or it's also called the social revolution, where now Hutus are up in arms, and Belgium is just sitting there. And it's like, by the way, it's about time. Us now, we are the ally of the Hutus. Tutsis, you take care of yourself. And we see a Hutu revolution that ends up, this revolution ends up costing the lives of more than 30,000 Tutsis and around, I think, 336,000 Tutsis exile, which means they leave Rwanda and they seek refuge from other African countries. So the neighboring African countries, you have Burundi, you have DRC, and then you have Uganda. And Hutus have taken power. Now it's our time. The revolution is here. The Hutu revolution happens. We have seen more than 30,000 Tutsis lose their life. We have seen almost 336,000 Tutsis exiled from Rwanda, and now Hutu is in control, and Belgium is still an ally. Hutus now come to power. By the time Rwanda is getting its independence in 1962, this is a Hutu-led government, right? But you remember when we talked about the Hutu revolution or the social revolution of 1959, and we said that almost 336 Tutsis exiled in neighboring African countries. These people in exile, of course, the Hutu government gave them a special name, and this name is Inyenzi. Inyenzi in different, I love how our languages connect. For people in different countries might get to understand Inyenzi as something close to a cockroach. So you will hear people say Nyenzi, Nyenje, Nyenzi. You get what I'm saying? So that's the name that the guys who went to exile were given. Remember, as this is happening, as they are being called Inyenzi, also in Rwanda, just because it's a Hutu government does not mean that all the Tutsis left. We still have Tutsis here on ground, but these Tutsis, they don't have any trouble. They are not causing any drama. Them, they are okay being led by a Hutu government. They are now the minority, and they have to trade carefully. But now, these other Tutsis that exiled, the Inyenzi, have started forming rebel groups, and they want to come back to Rwanda. They want to come back to what is theirs, because, yeah, we went to exile, but Rwanda is still home, and we have the right to be in this same country. So they form rebel groups, and they start attacking Rwanda. So now Hutus, the Hutu government, it's shocked. It's like, what is happening? Of course, they are not caught unprepared. They were prepared, because we can see them fighting back, strongly fighting back, but they also get upset. We have to deal with this Inyenzi, the exiled Tutsis, and then we still have Tutsis in our land here. So they conduct raids and they unlive more and more Tutsis in Rwanda. So obviously, the rebel groups can see this is not going to work. The Inyenzi, the ones who are in exile, now obviously they see this is not going to work, because we are losing so many people also internally. The ones who were okay with Hutu being in power, they are now getting unlived, and they are losing so many people. But remember, Hutus and Tutsis are not just in Rwanda. In Burundi, what is happening? In Burundi, we have a Tutsi-led government, right? So the Tutsis in Burundi are actually looking and seeing what is happening to their Tutsis in Rwanda, and they decide, kwani ni kesho? No, it's not tomorrow. Even us, we are going to have a whole genocide. So they decide to conduct a mass killing of the Hutus in Burundi. And this is actually a genocide because we end up losing almost 300,000 Hutus in this Burundi genocide, right? So that is happening. Back home now also, Rwanda is like, you guys, what are you doing, right? Then now, closely home here in Rwanda, another Rwanda massacre happens, where you have now more Tutsis dying, more Tutsis are losing their lives. So this is definitely a revenge mission between, different communities. Burundi is here, Rwanda is here, but it's power play. You have civil wars left, right, and center, and Rwanda becomes destabilized. But our guys, Belgium, they are just there, staring, right? They are just there looking at it. You have genocide, you have massacres. They will always support the people they think these are the people who are going to win, because remember, Belgium also has their own interests to protect in Rwanda, and we will get to that, because I think one of the questions we were asking ourselves as we prepared for this is, what were Belgium's interests in Rwanda? Considering that Rwanda is a landlocked country, considering what some of these observers are saying, there are no minerals, then why would colonial masters need Rwanda? And that's a question we are going to answer before we wind up on this particular part. So now, as years progress, we said different African countries are getting their independence, but the destabilization in Rwanda cannot be ignored, right? So a lot is happening. There's a lot of tension in Rwanda. It's getting a lot of pressure. The government this time being led by the Hutu Kayibanda, it's getting a lot of pressure from different people across the world because of these civil wars that are happening in Rwanda. And now the Minister of Defense, who is also going to overtake this government through a coup d'etat, his name is Habbyarimana, looks at this and says, you know what? No, this is not okay. So see, we have now the Hutu. Remember, this is not now the war of the Hutu and Tutsis. The Hutus are already in power, but they also have differences internally. They have internal differences and internal wrangles. Kayibanda is the one leading this government, but he's been accused of nepotism and favorism, because they are saying he favors the Hutus of the south, not the Hutus. So the Hutus of the north are actually annoyed. What is happening? So there are a lot of internal wrangles. And then, as I said, you have Habbyarimana, who is also the Minister of Defense, looking at it and decides, now this is not going to happen anymore. You are not in control. You cannot continue leading us. So what they do? They overthrow that government through a coup d'etat. And reports will indicate that even though Belgium did not speak about the coup d'etat, they actually silently supported the coup d'etat. They wanted Habbyarimana in power. They actually supported the overthrowing of the Kayibanda government. So again, enters Habbyarimana. Habby comes in. He promises to make Rwanda a better place. Actually, he promises stability, promises economic reform, and he also promises, keyword, continued cooperation with foreign investors. And who are these foreign investors? Of course, let's start with who? Let's start with Belgium. And what these countries in power, especially the Western countries, are going to do, they are going to go with the person that promises them stability and someone who also promises them cooperation, because they don't want to, you don't want a Traore. You don't want Traore coming here and telling you, no. I don't want cooperation with foreign investors, foreign countries. I want you gone. Remember, as I said, they have interests in Rwanda. They are protecting their own interests. So when Habi comes in and he guarantees them, Rwanda is going to be stable, etc., and we are going to cooperate with you guys, of course, Belgium is happy. But even though Habi promises stability, he doesn't deliver. We continue see a Rwanda that is unsettled. We continue seeing Rwanda that is unsafe. We continue seeing these activities, civil unrests happening in this country. So they are getting, there's pressure everywhere. The same pressure, of course, Kayibanda must have dealt with is the same pressure now Habi is dealing with. And at this point, most of the people in the world are tired of the civil unrests. A very important person comes to play, and this is Kagame, because now Kagame is leading the RPF from Uganda. So now Habi anaangalia anaona, there's no way I'm going to win this, by the way. You have the RPF wanting to come in, and then now you have Habbyarimana, who is obviously operating a destabilized country. And now here you have the foreign investors, Belgium, telling you, no, you guys, you need to sort your issues. At this rate, the RPF is coming in, led by Paul Kagame, is coming in strongly. So you guys, you have to sort your issue. And of course, the peace mission or the peace accord in Arusha is suggested. And you can see Habi wanting to try to give it, he wants to give it a try. But remember also, there are some of the people in the Hutu government who are not in agreement. They are like, why are we having these peace talks? Why do we need to be in Arusha? Why is this person in Arusha having these peaceful conversations? This is not what we want. We don't want peace. We want violence. So Habi is leading people who are also not united. But of course, the peace mission in Arusha happens. And this is where we will see now, when Habi is coming back, his flight is shot at and he is assassinated. And this was obviously the immediate cause of the 1994 genocide. So Habi is assassinated, and in 1994, there are a lot of triggers, but there's always that one thing that will make people go, no, 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 no. Because one instance where they are saying that Habi was assassinated by the Tutsis, other people internally are saying, no, Habi has been assassinated by the Hutus who are in disagreement. But of course, who is the blame going to fall to? Of course, the Tutsis. And here we see one of the most, I don't know how to call it. It's a genocide, even though the world did not term it as so then, even though people refused to use that word then, we see a genocide where almost 800, official reports say 800,000 Tutsis, and also the Hutus who are supporting the Tutsis, and maybe some of the Hutus who are protecting the Tutsis, lost their lives. So in just 100 days, because this starts in 1994, in just 100 days, April to July, just 100 days, you have lost almost 1 million people in Rwanda. But the question many people have always asked is, where was the world? Where was Belgium? Where was the US? Where was the UN? Where were other African countries? This is 1994. You have a genocide happening right in front of your eyes, and you have so many people losing their lives. And I'm going to play you a video here by the former president of the United States, Bill Clinton, taking responsibility of their failure to act or respond early. But they also failed to mention, that there are reasons why they could not get involved. And part of this are internal documents that state that Rwanda had nothing to offer the US in terms of mineral, and they also did not have their US bases there. So obviously there was nothing to protect. But let's first listen in to this part and what he says.
The international community, together with nations in Africa, must bear its share of responsibility for this tragedy as well. We did not act quickly enough after the killing began. We should not have allowed the refugee camps to become safe haven for the killers. We did not immediately call these crimes by their rightful name, genocide. We cannot change the past, but we can and must do everything in our power to help you build a future without fear.
Yeah, so of course he's not going to stand there in a press conference and talk about the involvement they had just a year, in Somalia, where we saw a very devastating loss. The US suffered a very devastating loss. They lost almost 18 of their soldiers, and the Somali rebels were dragging them across the streets, just passing a message. And this is something that Bill Clinton was highly criticized of. So obviously there's always a debate on whether it was too soon for them to go and assist, because the genocide is happening in 94. They just came from Somalia, the famous Black Hawk down effect. So they just came from Somalia and they've lost so many soldiers and they have suffered international shame. So some people argue that it was too soon for the US to go and interfere in what was happening to Rwanda. But also, as he has said, they avoided using the correct term genocide. And one of the reasons they might have avoided using that, it's because under the Genocide Convention of 1948, the US officially labeled if the US officially labeled a crisis a genocide, it would be legally obligated to intervene. So if we say this is a genocide, we have to intervene, right? So they say that they avoided calling the crisis in Rwanda genocide because they were avoiding any legal and moral responsibility. And so they used terms such as act of genocide, etc., which actually delayed international intervention. But now, when we spoke about the economic interest, Rwanda has no oil, it has no valuable minerals, and no major economic significance to US interests, right? The US foreign policy in the 1990s focused on regions like the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and Asia, and of course North Africa. So the Middle East, there of course you see we have a lot of minerals in terms of oil, etc., and their focus was obviously North Africa. And since Rwanda is a landlocked country with no strategic US military bases, it was not considered important for America intervention. So of course you have international countries such as America not calling this genocide by name, not wanting to interfere, having suffered the 1993 humiliation in Somalia. And so obviously that's much about the United States of America. Now let's take a look at what Belgium did, or where were they, because there's a genocide happening in a country that you proclaim to be yours. And when we spoke about the interest, of course, you can see from the US, this country has no minerals. This is a landlocked country. We don't have our bases here. But Belgium strategically used Rwanda back then. It was using Rwanda as, it's more of a trial factor because they had interests in other African countries. So they obviously also wanted to see if their divide and rule would work. I don't think we spoke about the Kipande system, the document where, they came up with these whole identifications where if you are at all, you have some I don't know, different features. They automatically say you are Tutsi, you are Hutu. So even by the time the genocide is taking place, I think you can see, or you've heard, that one of the things that the Hutu would ask for is your identification. So if they see you are a Tutsi, colors, that's just it for you. So they used Rwanda as a trial ground. This was a very, very centralized position for their rulings in different countries in Africa, and it was very special for them, and they did not want to lose Rwanda. They wanted to maintain their dominance and influence in Rwanda because it was very critical to some of their activities in other African countries. So let's take a look at where Belgium was or what they did, and also their famous apology. So what did they do? And I believe this is one of the saddest events to ever take place in that genocide, because they send the paracommandos regiments, right? So this it's a well-equipped army that comes in and takes over even the airport, and the Rwandans are looking at it and they are like, oh my goodness, thank you so much. Remember, by then not a lot of killings have happened, so the Rwandans are looking at this and they are like, thank you so much, you are here to save us, and maybe finally this war can stop. We don't have to lose more people. But in my imagination, by the way, I can see the Belgians, the soldiers or the army, catwalking past the Rwandans, going straight to their own nationals, their citizens, and getting them out of the places that they were trapped in. We do not have business with you guys, what is happening, how you are enlivening each other, what you are doing to each other. Our business here is to obviously get the Belgians out of this disaster. So their army that could have easily stopped this genocide comes in, takes out their people and leaves. And they leave Rwandans now to their own calamity or their own disaster, and the killings continue. And this is now where we get to witness a lot of people losing their lives, because for us to be able to end up with such a huge number, knowing very well by the time the Belgians are coming in, they would have actually prevented this from happening, is definitely saddening. Belgium goes ahead years later and issues this apology. So let's take a look at this, and you guys can also share your thoughts on the same.
J'assume ici devant vous la responsabilité de mon pays, des autorités politiques et des militaires belges. Et au nom de mon pays, au nom de mon peuple, je vous demande pardon pour ça.
So that's the video, what you're watching there. That's the video of the Belgian Prime Minister. This is happening on April 7th, 2000. That's the Prime Minister there, Guy Verhofstadt, that name, saying that he pays respect to the victims of the genocide in the name of his country and his people, and he asks for forgiveness. So there you can see them laying flowers. This is, I believe, the Genocide Memorial Park, where we also visited when we went to Rwanda. Yeah, so he's been very humble about it. And one would think that maybe after this apology in 2000, that the Belgians would stop interfering with Rwandans or the Rwandese matters, but that's not what takes place. And this leads us now to what is happening right now, because as we said earlier, the exits, when different people are exiting, they are going to settle in different parts of the African countries. And one of these countries, of course, is Congo. So you find out that a lot of people who exited or went to exile in different parts of these countries settled in Congo. And this is what is now bringing about, the M23 rebels, the conflict between Rwanda and Congo, the allegations that Kagame has is highly involved in what is taking place in DRC Congo, and this is something that he has greatly denied. And he said, you know what, the fact that there are people who speak our language in Congo does not mean that these are our people. It's an ongoing conflict that has left many people asking so many questions, especially where does PK stand in all this and what his role is in all this. And now yesterday we see them saying, you know what, enough is enough, because what Belgium is doing, the way Rwanda views this, or maybe what is happening, is that now Belgium is supporting the DRC. And there have also been talks of, I think, a lot of sanctions. Let me just read you a couple of things that Belgium has done, maybe before even this came to play, a couple of sanctions. And also Rwanda is accusing them of, you know what, you don't have to go and talk about us that way. If you don't want to assist, if you don't want to be in our country, that is good. We are all good, but you don't have to go on a smear campaign against Rwanda. You stick with DRC, support what is happening in DRC, but you will not go on smearing our name, even to other European countries, etc., etc. So let's just take a look at some of these aids that have been, the sanctions that have taken place, and also the most important question: why would Rwanda continue wanting to get aid or receiving aid from someone that cost them so many lives, right? What is the morality? What is happening here that you continue receiving aid from someone who destroyed your country? So let's take a look at a couple of these sanctions and also what other people are saying on the reaction from different people across social media platforms on what is happening in Rwanda. And now, obviously, the end of diplomatic ties between Rwanda and Belgium. Yeah, so some of them, which obviously involves Belgium supporting the European Union sanctions targeting Rwandan individuals and also entities involved in the DRC conflict. We know obviously that Belgium has criticized Rwanda's alleged backing of the M23 rebel groups in the DRC, but Rwanda has also accused Belgium of interfering in the DRC conflict and also leveraging its colonial past to undermine Kigali, leaving Rwanda to order, as we said, all diplomats out of their country. But as we talk about what Belgium could have done, what the US could have done, another maybe key factor here to note is what did African countries do, and what did the Organization of African Union, which is now the African Union, what did it do, and could it have done better? And I believe a lot of failure is attributed to the African Union because, number one, they delayed even calling this what it is, again, a genocide. They delayed interfering in this whole genocide. And it's on record that the African Union definitely let Rwanda down. And I know we call the late Kofi Annan the peacemaker, especially considering what he did here in Kenya by bringing, Raila and Kibaki together, but also he's highly attributed as part of the failure of the African Union. As he's obviously in the failure list because we see him ignoring warnings from General Delea and also telling him not to engage. So you are looking at the African Union as a branch that is supposed to be at the forefront in preventing this genocide from happening, but you have them watching from a distance and even telling the general, do not engage, leave it as it is. Quite a failure there. And also roles that were played by other African countries. We see Uganda right here, even before the genocide. A lot of African countries, of course, were hosting the refugees. They made a safe haven for these refugees. But now also Kenya, we see it in a very negative light, where some of the perpetrators of the genocide made Kenya their home. I don't know if you guys remember one of the people who has been termed as the chief financier of the genocide. This is Felicia Kabuga, a very famous name. But I think the saddest part is to know that this person made Kenya his home. He even operated here. He had businesses here, and some of his family members also had villas across different parts of this country. So sometimes people don't want to ask these hard questions. As much as we want to say that, we hosted refugees, but, we hosted both the victims and the perpetrators. We just spoke about Felicia Kabuga, who was the chief financier of the genocide, having hid here in Kenya for so many years. But we also have to address arms trafficking is also one of the things that Kenya has been condemned for or accused for. We were obviously used as a transit point for arms that were supplied to the genocidal regime. Some reports actually indicate that arms shipments passed through the port of Mombasa. So because we have the infrastructure, we are a stable country. This is 1994, by the way, guys. We are not talking about the 1950s or the 1960s. This is happening in 1994, and Kenya is enjoying political stability at that particular time. We have the infrastructure, and also the allegations that some of the meetings even happened here in Nairobi, right? Also, the fact that Kenya and Rwanda had economic and intelligence ties before the genocide, but after that, Kenya distanced itself from the conflict, even during the killings. That is also a very sad key thing to note. And also, some people suggest that some reports suggest that Kenyan security forces and intelligence had knowledge of the movements of the Rwandan fugitives, but did little to apprehend them. So you have the perpetrators, passing around, but you don't do anything to apprehend them. And sometimes you might think, well, this was not our war, but I feel like Africa, we've not come to terms with even the borders that were created for such a time as this, where we get to see ourselves as, Tanzania, Kenya, Rwanda, Burkina Faso. We don't even see ourselves as Africans anymore. Like, what happened to the Ubuntu? What happened to us as Africans, looking at what is happening in 1994 and collectively decide, what, we are going to help. But we also have other African countries that, came in and, condemned this in the strongest terms possible. Tunisia, different African countries that were not scared. And one of the things that I know many of you might know is the story of this Captain Baye from Senegal, who many people applaud, and some people actually say this is someone who has been forgotten when it comes to the Rwandan genocide because of the role he played. Of course, he was a UN peacekeeper during the genocide, but he disregarded all official orders to remain neutral and courageously conducted numerous solo missions, and he rescued hundreds of Tutsis and also the Hutus, the moderate Hutus who were supporting the Tutsis, by transporting them to safety in UN vehicle. So this is someone that people say must be celebrated because he decided, no, this is not a neutral ground. What is happening in Rwanda is not neutral, and this is someone I know who will be remembered. And sometimes you look at it and you wonder, if we had 100 Africans doing this, would we have prevented what happened in Rwanda? So now, to bring it back home with what is happening right now between Belgium and Rwanda, Belgium continues running smear campaigns against Rwanda. It's clear they have a favorite. They have also their own interest to protect in the DRC, and they have also, alleged that Rwanda is involved in what is happening in DRC. So some of the questions to ask here is what happens now, because of course Belgium has strong ties with the European Union. We can see this is a place where Rwanda has decided it's leaving the AFRICOM and it's now establishing strong ties with Commonwealth members. So do you think Belgium will influence the European Union to keep sanctioning Rwanda? And also, one of the most important questions I ask is, why would Rwanda also continue receiving help from people that caused them so much pain, right? Do you believe we have come to an era where we as Africans must continue refusing to take help or aid or even donations from the Western world, right? When Rwanda says it's self-reliable. Do you believe that's the case? And also, when you now get to understand the dynamics of things and you get to understand the role that Belgium played, do you think they owe Rwanda more? Do you think they should actually pay a price for what they did in this specific country? And how does that price look like? Should all countries now in Africa continue going the Traore way? Should they decide who they want to partner with? And do you think that it's about time that, you know what, Belgium just left this country alone? What are your thoughts, and what would you say around this? And do you think Rwanda was right to cut off diplomatic ties with Belgium? And did the way Belgium react, or how they retaliated, do you think that was the right thing to do? Really interested in your feedback on the comment section, and I look forward to us continuing to explore and continuing to learn. This is a very murky, it's a very murky ground, especially when we are talking about Rwanda and Belgium. And when you look at someone like Kagame, they are saying, you know what, this is our country and we are going to use the little we have to survive. How does that make you feel? And do you think Rwanda's President Paul Kagame also is involved with what is happening in DRC? Because this, I believe, is what a lot of people are questioning. What exactly is his role in what is happening in DRC? Let's engage on the comment section, but allow me to read what he said here and the message he has to his people. And he said, I want to tell you that being yourself, standing firm in your identity is not easy. It's an arduous task. Just like liberating this country, it required sacrifices, and some had to give up the most valuable thing a person has, life itself. Rwandans sacrificed their lives so that our country could become what it deserves to be. We Rwandans must be ready to tighten our belts, and not just tighten belts, we must fight for our rights. It is our duty to fight for our rights. That is message or a statement he issued to his people, telling them, you know what, tighten your belts. If you are watching this and maybe you have a different opinion, I would also love to hear it on the comment section. But I see a time where obviously a lot of African countries continue to cut ties with Western world. I don't know if that's a good thing for Africa to do, or what your thoughts on the same. Leave your thoughts on the comment section. My name is Lynn Ngugi. Thank you so much for tuning in. And maybe while you are at it, let us know what are other key topics that you would love us to discuss as we continue learning, unlearning, and relearning, one conversation at a time.